This woman is extraordinarily woke, as everyone is in Hollywood, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
Minecraft in the United States in one weekend made more money than Snow White has made globally after 3 weekends.
Movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
Did you hear about the new Snow White movie? Of course you did, but did you hear how badly it actually bombed? We're not talking underperforming, we're talking a box office disaster of epic proportions. Reports are saying it even got beat by Minecraft on opening weekend. Yes, you heard that right. In Hollywood, where fairy tales are supposed to be bulletproof, a remake of Snow White, one of the most iconic stories ever, didn't just stumble, it face-planted. How does a studio take a story as beloved and timeless as Snow White and turn it into a financial catastrophe? That's the question everyone in Hollywood is asking, and the answer is a tangled web of missteps, arrogance, and a shocking disconnect from what audiences actually want.
Well, like me, who watched Disney princess movies when the world was okay, and it was acceptable for us to dream about being a princess as a woman and meeting a handsome prince. But oh no, these big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince?
But this wasn't a sudden, out-of-nowhere failure. The signs were there, brewing long before the movie even premiered. A sense of unease started to creep in months before release, and it all centered around one person, Rachel Zegler, the actress cast as Snow White. It wasn't the usual pre-release excitement, it was something different. A feeling that something was off, that this wasn't going to be the nostalgic, heartwarming fairy tale revival everyone expected. The whispers started softly, but they grew louder with each interview, each public appearance Zegler made.
And be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after. No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that.
What were these whispers about? Zegler's own words. In interview after interview, she seemed to go out of her way to distance herself from the classic Snow White story, even appearing to criticize it. She questioned the very essence of the fairy tale, dismissing the idea of needing a prince, downplaying the concept of true love, and even suggesting the original story was outdated, almost embarrassing. It's no longer 1937, she declared in one interview, as if the year itself was a mark of shame. She went on to say Snow White wouldn't be saved by the prince and wasn't dreaming about true love, but instead focused on becoming a leader. It wasn't just a modern update. It felt like a complete rejection of the source material's heart.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
The reaction from fans was immediate and intense. For generations, Snow White wasn't just a story, it was a cultural touchstone, a symbol of innocence, kindness, and yes, romantic dreams. Hearing the actress embody this iconic character seemingly scoff at these very themes felt like a slap in the face. Online forums and social media exploded with anger and disappointment. People felt alienated, their childhood memories and affections dismissed as irrelevant or even wrong. It wasn't just about disliking a movie, it was a deeper feeling of betrayal, as if something precious was being deliberately undermined.
And the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
Into this storm of fan outrage stepped Candace Owens, the conservative commentator known for her outspoken opinions. Owens didn't hold back, becoming a central voice in the growing backlash. She didn't just criticize the movie, she dissected Zegler's comments, framing them as a prime example of Hollywood's growing disconnect from mainstream audiences. Whether you agree with her politics or not, Owens tapped into a raw nerve, articulating the frustration many felt about what they perceived as arrogance and disrespect towards a beloved classic.
Yeah, we had more dwarfs than we did viewers in most of these theaters. And as you know, there were no dwarfs other than some CGI weird generated version of them. It's the old, it truly is go woke, go broke.
Owens' core argument was simple and direct. You cannot take on the responsibility of portraying an iconic character from a cherished story and then openly disdain the very elements that made it iconic. She argued that there's a fundamental level of respect due to the source material and the audience who loves it. Modernization is one thing, she contended, but outright dismissal is another. Owens and many others began to push the narrative of go woke, go broke, suggesting that Hollywood's pursuit of certain ideologies was actively alienating its audience and hurting its bottom line.
Don't alienate half of the country when you're putting out a product meant to appeal to all. It's the Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers too.
The controversy quickly spiraled into a full-blown public relations nightmare for Disney. No amount of carefully crafted trailers or promotional events could overcome the negative buzz generated by Zegler's comments. Any attempts at damage control seemed to backfire, further fueling the perception that the studio was tone-deaf to audience concerns. The pre-release hype, usually a carefully orchestrated campaign to build excitement, was replaced by a deafening roar of negativity. It wasn't just a PR hiccup, it was a fundamental crisis of messaging and audience perception.
For every one of the 18 hours I am in this Snow White dress, I expect to get paid. If it's 18 hours, I want 18 hours of pay. I'm sure she got underpaid as a Disney lead actress.
Box office analysts, usually optimistic about Disney fairy tales, started to sound the alarm. Predictions for the film's financial performance were drastically downgraded. The overwhelming negativity was so palpable, so widespread, that experts began to predict a box office bomb before the movie even hit theaters. They pointed to the controversy as a major red flag, a clear indication that audiences were actively being turned away, regardless of the Disney name or the fairy tale brand. The financial writing was on the wall, spelled out in angry tweets and boycott calls. But the problems might have run deeper than just public relations and controversial comments. Whispers began to circulate about behind-the-scenes turmoil on the production. Rumors of casting changes, extensive and costly reshoots, and creative clashes hinted at a project in disarray. This suggested that the issues weren't solely superficial PR problems, but perhaps symptomatic of a more fundamental lack of vision or internal conflict during the film's creation. The negative narrative expanded, encompassing not just the star but the entire production.
People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the hour.
Then the controversy took an even more divisive turn, entering the realm of political and cultural warfare. Zegler's comments, initially focused on the fairy tale narrative, broadened to touch upon wider social and political themes. This further polarized potential viewers, turning what was supposed to be a family-friendly film into a lightning rod for culture war debates. Suddenly, choosing to see Snow White became a loaded statement, forcing audiences to align themselves within a pre-existing and highly contentious cultural battleground.
So she just encapsulates everything that most of us cannot stand about modern-day feminism and the left in general.
Fueled by online outrage and amplified by commentators like Candace Owens, a boycott movement gained significant momentum. Social media became a battleground, with calls to boycott the movie spreading rapidly. Hashtags trended, videos denouncing the film went viral, and the message was clear. A substantial portion of the potential audience felt actively alienated and were determined not to support this new version of Snow White. The studio, seemingly caught completely off guard, appeared unable to effectively counter the rising tide of negative sentiment.
This weird feminist thing where her heroine cannot be in love or be saved by a man, the prince, that she's more focused on becoming the leader she was meant to be, as if women in modern day America must make that choice.
And then came release day, the moment of truth. The box office numbers weren't just disappointing, they were catastrophic. Compared to other Disney live-action remakes, compared to industry projections, even compared to seemingly unrelated films like Minecraft, Snow White utterly tanked. The box office receipts were a brutal, undeniable confirmation of the pre-release predictions and a stark illustration of the devastating impact of the surrounding controversy. The numbers spoke volumes, screaming failure in Hollywood's face.
You cannot both be a leader as a female and fall in love and be rescued by a prince. Like, that's incongruous bullshit. That's only the left's version of what it means to be a strong woman or female empowerment.
Adding insult to injury, the critical reception was also overwhelmingly negative. While some reviewers acknowledged the film's attempts at modernization, many found it fundamentally lacking. Reviews pointed to a forced and unnatural narrative, a jarring disconnect between the visual spectacle and the emotional hollowness of the story, and a general sense of, well, just plain bad filmmaking. It wasn't just about wokeness or political agendas. Critics across the board simply found the movie to be poorly executed and unengaging. Even Zegler's performance, ironically, was often criticized for lacking the warmth and charm expected of Snow White.
So, I mean, this woman has clicked every box. And just for cherry on top at the end, she gave an interview last week talking about how they were basically a bunch of white supremacists on the set of West Side Story.
So what's the fallout? For Hollywood, this Snow White disaster should serve as a brutal, if not incredibly expensive, wake-up call. It's a stark lesson in the crucial importance of respecting your audience and the source material you're adapting, especially when dealing with beloved classics. It's a harsh reminder that star power can be a double-edged sword, and that sometimes, in the realm of public perception, less is more when it comes to pre-release publicity and controversial opinions. The question now is, will Hollywood actually learn from this costly mistake, or will it be chalked up as just another anomaly?
Where Steven Spielberg and co. were demanding that she prove how Latina she really is, since her name doesn't sound Latina, and she was angrily saying, did I have to bring in my little abuelita for you to believe that I was Latina?
In the end, the reimagining of Snow White became a cautionary tale itself, a modern fable about arrogance, misjudgment, and the perils of ignoring audience sentiment in the entertainment industry. It's a story about how quickly a beloved narrative can be tarnished when disrespect replaces reverence, and how even the most seemingly invincible brands can stumble when they lose touch with what their audience truly cherishes. The tale of this woke Snow White will likely be recounted for years to come in Hollywood, a stark and unforgettable reminder that sometimes the most enchanting stories are the ones that honor their roots, not defiantly rewrite them with disdain. And for audiences, it's a poignant reminder that their voices, when raised together, can still hold significant power even in the face of a Hollywood giant.